All right, gonna go ahead and get started here. I started the stream and of course the dog started barking. And then I didn't have my coffee beans out here, so I had to go get those and I had to get all ready. Coffee roasting live. Gonna go ahead and get started here. Here's what we're doing today. So I'm trying to concentrate on getting these beans in the hopper here, in the drum, without spilling a whole bunch. Okay, there we go. All right, we can get started now. So I had to measure out the beans because I did not get a shipment from Sweet Maria's this week. My subscription, I guess they have a new thing going now. They're renewing them or something. So they sent me an email to just verify my subscription and stuff. I don't know, maybe they had a problem with something. I don't know, but I didn't have any coffee to roast, so I had to order some from Amazon. And I told you Amazon was my backup. I like Sweet Maria's because they just ship it to me every 2 weeks for 2 months. So I have a 2-month subscription. Every 2 weeks they send me 8 pounds. Every 2 months they send me 8 pounds. I roast 2 pounds a week, so it's supposed to last me for 2 months. So sometimes, I guess because of the dates, the weeks, I don't know what it is, but sometimes it doesn't come before I run out. That's what happened this time. I realized Friday I didn't have any coffee to roast, but I needed to roast coffee, so I had to order, and I got some on Amazon. So I've ordered this before and I believe it was really good. I think this is what I use to make my espresso type beans, or the beans I use for espresso. I just roast it really, really dark, called like an espresso roast. So I ordered these, I got these yesterday. That's the good thing about Amazon. They always, have something that you can get pretty quick. So anyways, it's a 3-pound bag. It was like, I don't know, $30 or something like that. So I had to weigh out 2 pounds of coffee, because that's what I roast, 2 pounds of coffee a week. And so that's what I got going in there. I was trying to mount my switching program over here, but I don't really have anywhere I can mount it to. This table doesn't have a spot, so it's mounted way over on the other side there. So anyways, I got the coffee roaster set up. I got everything kind of dialed in and going here. I'm still using the thermometer. I talk about this thermometer every time I roast now because it just gives me nothing but problems. Realistically, I'm going to go by what the beans look like. It just hasn't worked right. There's a access hole on the side of the roaster here where this goes in, and it usually works pretty good. It used to work really good, but now I just don't know. I just don't know anymore. It seems like I can't trust it all the time. So sorry about it's going to get bright and cloudy back and forth because cloud in the sky. It hasn't cleared up yet. I was trying to wait for it to clear up, and of course, once it started clearing up, then the sun got blocked by the clouds, so that's going to mess up with some of my cameras, I think. So you might get some washed out views today. And then, of course, the dog started barking just a minute ago when I started the stream, so I was trying to wait for that. Every time somebody walks their dogs by the houses up here, neighbor dog starts barking. It's just his territory. It's just what he does. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem. I understand it, you know. It's his yard, and he's just trying to make sure everybody knows that he's there. So last time I roasted, I talked about these. Let me see if I put this other. Try that one there. In the front shot, you might be able to see how these legs are starting to point outward. So these arms are attached to the base here with just rivets, not screws. So what's happening is just over time, the rivets are kind of loosening, and what's happening is this edge here is being pushed by the gear on the side of the mount here where the motor is, and what's happening is it's pushing them apart. And what happened is that made the drum right here on these bearings fall off. And so what was happening while I was roasting is the drum was falling off the roaster or off the bearings, and it was getting caught. And it's still trying to, you know, turn over here on this side, and it's just kind of grinding, and everything kind of gets, you know, messed up. And this is why I talk about when you're doing a roasting like this with these roasters, you know, they're not the highest quality. I mean, this is a really cheap setup. It's like 120 bucks for this roaster. It's pretty cheap. It works really, really great. I've had this for, I don't know, I can't even remember how many years I've had this. I know I've had it a few years. So anyways, I'm to the point now to where I want to drill out those rivets, and I want to put bolts in there, and I want to bolt that together nice and tight. Because also, as you can hear, the bearings are starting to squeal. Now, over on this side of the roaster here, this is where the squealing is actually coming from. There's another set of bearings that keep this rod right here that holds the drum. It keeps this rod right here rotating on the bearings. Well, these are just flat out loose, and the bearings seem to be pretty worn. So it's not even riding on the bearings right now. It's just riding on the little grooved out shape in the roaster mounting bracket here. So I meant to go get those, but you know, I do it, I forget about it, I work for a week, and then I totally forget about it, and then I don't realize it until I come out here and I start roasting that, oh, I gotta fix that. So, you know, over time, this roaster, I mean, I do it 26, you know, rain or shine. I do nothing but roast coffee for us at home. Some weeks I roast more than one batch, because I do a dark roast, like a dark roast for my espresso machine, because I do 2 shots of espresso in my coffee in the morning. So I need to pay attention to the temperature. I need to pay attention to the window. This is the one thing I like about this drum, is it does have the window where you can There's some chafe, which is just the skin of the bean drying out and coming off, and it comes out these little vent holes in the drum here, and it flies around. Now, chafe is something that we have to remove once we're done roasting. That's why I have 2 colanders here, one for each pound, and then I have a fan. And I'm going to take the coffee once it's done roasting. I'm going to dump it in here, the whole batch. I'm going to kind of get it starting to cool down, and then I'm going to separate them, and I'm going to dechafe them in 1 pound batches because it's just easier and easier to do with the smaller batches because the colanders are only so big. So this is the basic gist of coffee roasting at home. It's going to take about 15 or 20 minutes. I could probably turn up the burner just a little bit more. And the roasting process is about time and temperature. Both those things are going to affect the flavor profile you get. I mean, generally overall, you're going to get a good flavor profile if you roast it at a high temperature, low temperature. Low temperature, of course, is going to take longer. My burner is a high output BTU, which just means it puts out more BTU than a regular burner. A regular burner is fine, but you could use either or. And like I said, I'm using a high output. Now, I'm very low on propane, and I'm not going to be surprised if I actually run out of propane while I'm doing this, because I can see the flame is already getting low. So I'm actually going to run and get a new propane tank, I think, after this roast here. And this is really all I use propane for. And I don't even know how long I've had this tank. It's been a while. So time and temperature. If you want to start out slow, you can. I mean, it could take 30 minutes to 40 minutes to roast if you do it at a really low temperature. I like to try to do it in about the 15-minute range, just because I want to get it over with. I have other things I need to do during the day. So I run the propane tank at about, like I said, I have the high pressure output. It's a little over halfway turned, the dial. So that's just kind of the area. I just know by the words on the knob, you know, what position I want it in to roast, to try to get it around 50 minutes. So you can roast, and you can roast it really, really fast and get it up to like it is right now, 360 or whatever, really, really fast. And then you can turn it down, and you can kind of let it slow roast a little bit, and let it roast at a much slower pace or rate. It's going to help change your flavor profile just a little bit. And it's kind of one of those things with home roasting that you can do, is you can just play with it a little bit. You know, if you're a light coffee drinker, light roast coffee drinker, you know, you can do a light roast. If you're a medium, you can do a medium roast. If you're dark, you can do a dark roast. You know, if you forget about it and you're not paying attention and it goes dark, you know, hey, you got a dark roast, you can try it. You know, you can do half-pound batches, you can do whole-pound batches. What I normally do is I do two different types of beans from 2 different areas, like one from, say, you know, Guatemala, and the other one from Peru or whatever. You know, it could be anywhere. That's the thing about the sampler pack, is I get samples of coffees from all over the world, and they all have their own flavor profiles based on the region they're from, the farms that grow them, and just everything about it. You know, the drying process. There's just so many things that are, you know, different about the different coffee beans. But the one thing is, if you find a bean that you like, that's you go, oh man, this coffee is really great, I like really how well it turned out, you can just buy that type from Sweet Maria's. That's the thing I like about Sweet Maria's. You can do that. I mean, you can do that with Amazon, but you have to buy a whole bag of something and I believe there's some sites on Amazon where you can get some sampler packs and things like that. I don't know. I know Sweet Maria's is pretty good about the whole sampler pack thing. So my only point is that, you can enjoy the different flavor profiles if you're willing to experiment and experience the differences in, the lighter roast. The lighter roasts contain more caffeine, so it's going to get you more wired. The darker roasts are going to be more full flavored, more bold, strong, and a little bit more acidic, and they might tear your stomach up a little bit. I mean, I love drinking the really bold, strong espresso shots, but man, sometimes that acidity of the bean is just really a lot on my stomach, and sometimes it bothers my stomach, and those are the things that you can learn as you're doing this, as you're moving along on the journey of coffee roasting. I think the number one thing you're going to find is it's probably going to be the best cup of coffee you've ever had, no matter what you do. If it's a light roast and you try it, you're going to go, man, oh my God, the flavor in this stuff is great. It's going to have a different flavor profile. You're going to be amazed at the flavor you get from it, because the fresh roast of the coffee is probably the first thing that you've probably never really experienced, unless you've actually gone to a place where they've actually roasted, or they have the roasting date and it was like 1 or 2 days before you bought it, and you go home and you immediately use it. Now, just because you're roasting at home doesn't mean you're going to roast and you're going to immediately drink it. That's not the process. The process is you let it, you need to let it, there's a different word for it. I call it decarb, but it's basically you need to let the gases release from the bean fully. It needs to breathe for a day, for about 24 hours before you use it. And you store it in a bag. And most bags are going to have a one-way check valve. Most coffee storage containers are going to have a one-way air check valve on the bottom to help release some of those gases as they build up, or as they can build up. Okay, so we're at 409 degrees right now, as far as I can tell. I did start hearing some cracking going on, so I know that we're getting close. And this is the range where we really want to pay attention, because we have a really short window of temperature from light roast to medium roast to dark roast. It's only about a 10 to 15 degree spread. And to me, it's subjective. It's a matter of what you think that should look like. There are samples you can get. You can look up online. You can look at the different, levels of coffee roasting, bean color, to get an idea of what you're looking for. But basically, you want to wait for this first crack. Once this first crack comes in, it's going to pretty quickly roll over to the second crack. And the second crack is going to be a little bit more aggressive and a lot more quicker. Right now, the first crack is just kind of slow, and it slowly builds into it as all the beans get up to that temperature. Like it says 426 right now. 426 is generally where your lighter roast is. And with a lighter roast, you're going to, get a lighter flavor. You're going to get a little more caffeine. And then as it goes from here at about 435, 440, you start getting into the medium roast area. Now, like I said, this thermometer hasn't been doing the greatest job of being very accurate. That's why I use the window. I can see in the window what's going on with the roast. Whoops, that was wrong. the cracking is starting to get a little more intense, and I just want to make sure that we're not getting too dark here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and shut the burner off, and I'm just going to kind of let it roast out where it is, just to kind of make sure that everything's kind of getting evenly roasted. You know, it says we're at 448 degrees right now. You know, so to me that's not too dark and that's not too light. It could be a little bit more than the medium roast. You know, a lot of it really depends on the bean itself too. So the smoke has come up a lot. I could see in the drum too that the color looks really good. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And I don't have my pliers out here today, so this is going to be tough to do. Yeah, this is the one reason why I always have my pliers out here, and I didn't bring them today because I can't. Let me turn this. I gotta put these other gloves on. I can't open this door with that little small, with these big gloves. I mean, I hate to say it, I always say this when I pour a batch out, but God, that looks beautiful. Looks great. Let me cool it for just a second. I'll kind of show you what we're looking like here, but really happy with this. Okay, now so this is the hardest part to deal with because there's going to be a lot of chaff blowing out, and this is really full, so I'm just trying to slow the roasting process down. I got the fan going. So, and realistically, I really determined the doneness based on the sound and the smell. I didn't really follow the temperature, because if I was following the temperature, I would have been freaking out at like 430 degrees, because I try to do it at like a medium roast, not too dark, not too light. And, you know, this is the reason why, you know, we both kind of like it a little bit different, and this is the reason why I make an espresso for myself, and I do espresso shots, because I like a little bit bolder flavor in one of my cups of coffee in the morning. So that's what I do, is I do a couple espresso shots, I put it in my 16-ounce mug with some coffee, and I get a nice bold. Do one more of these. Oops. So that's another thing. When you pour it from one basket to another, it helps kind of get some of this chaff out. Some roasts have a little bit more than others. But there you go. I'm trying to just give you as good a look as possible at what those are looking like. Got the bright sun in the back there. And that is just I mean, to me, that is a really nice roast. It's not too dark, it's not too light. That's almost exactly how I like it right there. And we both can deal with this. Okay, let me finish this off. So it doesn't matter where I go when I do this, the wind always seems to blow right at me. Like I say, we're just trying to cool, and I don't know how well you can see all the stuff flying out, but all the little particles are, you know, the chaff is flying out. So my neighbor's from Colombia, and he says every time I roast coffee, it reminds him of being home. His family is coffee, they're coffee roasters, you know, they're growers and all that stuff. And he just says every time I roast coffee, it reminds him of back home. And it is a great smell. It should never smell burnt. It should never smell like Starbucks. Unless that's what you want, of course. You want burnt coffee, burn it. And, you know, that's kind of the flavor profile that for some reason Starbucks is going for. I don't understand it. I don't get it, but whatever. I don't drink it. So I get some weird and crazy comments sometimes, and you know, I deal with them all like they're serious, but I think some of the comments I get sometimes are just crazy comments, you know, coming from I don't even know where, I don't even know what makes people, you know, post some of that stuff, but there are no issues with cooking with propane. I mean, a lot of people cook food with propane grills, and we've been doing it for years. It doesn't add any flavor. It doesn't put any chemicals on it. It doesn't do any of that crazy stuff. Other people say you shouldn't do it over an open flame. This is what I do. This is how I do it. And I just show it because I like to show people how easy it is to do. And until you try it and until you really understand why people do the home coffee roasting, you know, once you do it, you'll get a better understanding of why people go through this. I mean, this is only 30 minutes out of my day. You know, yeah, I do it live and all that kind of stuff. It takes me a little longer. You know, I just like doing videos and stuff like that. And it's not so much, you know, doing live videos. I just like doing, you know, setting up and processing and, you know, tearing down. I do other live videos on another channel, and, you know, I really enjoy it, man. I'll set up, you know, 8 cameras sometime and do a live with 8 different cameras, you know, on outdoor type stuff, things in my yard or whatever. And it's just something I enjoy doing. So that's why I do live. And I really feel like if I continually show the process and the method, and it sparks somebody's interest, I mean, I know there's quite a few people that have, you know, sent me messages saying, hey, you know, I watched your videos a few times and I kind of felt like, you know, hey, I could do it myself and I want to try it. And I did it, and oh my God, you were so right. It turned out so great, and you know, it was really easy, you know, and you know, there is a little learning curve to it, but there is with everything. And until you try it, you just won't understand how much real flavor you can get out of coffee. Just knowing the different roasting temperatures, knowing the different the differences in times and all that kind of stuff. So, all right, so that is my roast this week. If you have any questions, of course, you can always send me a comment. I don't have any problems. You can get this roaster on Amazon right now. I've seen them on Amazon. It's like $120, and it's generally $140 shipped to your house if you're in the United States. That's about what I've noticed. You can buy them from different sellers. Some sellers sell it for cheaper but charge more for shipping. And as far as the burner goes, it's really pretty basic. It's just a camp style burner, turkey fryer burner, you know, whatever you want to call it. It's just an outdoor burner. You could probably use your side burner on your grill if it's big enough to hold this drum roaster. Propane is easy to get these days. You know, you can do an exchange program. That's kind of what I do. I just take the empty to Home Depot, buy a new one, change them out, and I'm on my way. Gloves is the only other thing you're going to need, and a thermometer. This is a thermocouple type K series thermometer. Like I said, it was really great until they had to change the thermocouple probe. Now, ever since I've done that, it's been kind of hit or miss. It just sticks into the side of the roaster here, and looks kind of like that. And it just goes in here, and I usually have it pointing down so it's in the beans, and that records your temperature. So hope you learned something here. Hope you get more and more interested in doing this. Thanks for watching.